Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a look at the new vintage head sculpt MOTU Origins He-Man figure. So this figure is a lot like the one released all the way back in the first wave. Key difference being it has a head sculpt based on the original He-Man toy, not the redone, more cartoon accurate one that the Wave 1 figure had. And it also uses the complete power sword sculpt instead of the half sword that is meant to combine with Skeletors. Now you may notice, I don't know if you can tell from this angle, that the card back is not attached to my blister. And, well, it came like this from good old Amazon, who never fails to just completely screw up the packaging for these. So yeah, I don't know exactly how this happened, because I mean, it is like completely detached. And at first I thought the glue must have come undone, but you can actually see scraps of like the card face here. So it's like it got ripped open in transit. And unfortunately the Skeletor that I got with this, the vintage head Skeletor, is the same way. So I'm really annoyed. Luckily, nothing appears to be damaged outside of the packaging, but I mean, come on. They don't even try anymore. Anyway, if you see my reviews before you know this goes, we're going to take a look at He-Man's packaging, you know, his open packaging. And then we'll open it up, we'll get a quick look at his mini comic, which appears to be the Wave 5 comic, so I guess that makes this guy and Skeletor officially part of Wave 5. And then we'll see He-Man himself, check out his new head, check out his new sword. Naturally, I'll be doing some group shots and comparisons with this toy today, and then at the end of the video, I'll get my final thoughts. So He-Man comes in your standard MOTU Origins packaging, pretty much the exact same packaging that the Wave 1 figure came with. The only real difference is that you don't have the little new for 20 call out because, you know, it's not 2020 anymore. So you get the He-Man toy right in the middle, comic in the background. Still got his name and title on the front. Let me turn this around. Oh, this is terrible. I hate this. Then you get his really cool art, which is the same one that they use on the Wave 1 figure. So this is really just kind of a running change more than anything. Kind of like with Transformers, how, like, you know, the Beast Wars toys, you'd have like a white prowl and a black prowl. So his flavor text here says, with the mystical power sword, the mighty He-Man protects Eternia from the forces of evil. Pretty generic, but accurate. Little action call-outs, right? Put the sword in his hand, twist him around, all that. And we get our Wave 5 cross-sells. So you get the new He-Man and the new Skeletor are actually called out here. You also get Faker, Fisto, 2002 Colors Evelyn, and Lords of Power Merman. So it's a very interesting wave. Lots of really neat references and stuff with this. And yeah, that's really all there is to see in the packaging. I'd say let's open this up, but you know, it's already been opened for me. See, Amazon, they're so big on the customer service, they open the package for you now. That's the way we gotta look at it, I guess. Okay, now we get our first look at the Wave 5 mini comic. This one's called Sucker Punch. You see Fisto squatting down, examining something, and then you see He-Man about to knock him out with a club. Why would He-Man do such a thing? Starts out Fisto just kind of hopping around in this forest. All of a sudden, the land shark comes barreling in out of nowhere, so he instinctively punches the land shark, and He-Man, of all people, goes flying out of it. And before Fisto can figure out what's going on, He-Man sucker punches him with his club, knocks him out. Fisto wakes up in this prison cell here, and then our supposed He-Man comes in, beats him up, mocks him. Fisto realizes something's wrong, so he punches him, and it's revealed to be Faker. Who would have guessed? Faker? Wow. Plot twist. And we get back to Snake Mountain here. You got Skeletor chastising his minions. They're all looking down at the defeated Faker. But Skeletor's not sweating it because he's got a whole army of them. So, yeah, that's the comic. And it prominently features all of our Wave 5 core figures. So you got, like, your standard Fisto here. You got Evelyn, who her toy's in the comic colors. You got Merman, whose toy is his Lords of Power version. And then Faker. And then we also get Skeletor, who appears here as the other vintage head toy. And then kind of sort of He-Man, though it's actually Faker. So, I don't know, it's interesting. Neat little mini comic. I think one of the better ones. And then, as per the norm, we get our cross-sells here again on the back. Now we get to have a close look at our He-Man with all of his vintage headed goodness. And I gotta say, the head, it's pretty spot on to the old toy. However, it's also not the first time we've seen this head. It was actually previously used on the Battle Armor He-Man, So really, this figure is just taking the regular He-Man body and slapping the head from the Battle Armor toy on there. It's not actually really anything wholly unique. Honestly, if you just own like the other two versions of He-Man that already came out, you can pretty much assemble this guy anyway. Aside from the head, he does have some details that really actually put him further away from being vintage than most people would like. For one, he does still use the same, standard He-Man body from Origins, which means he still has two wristbands in lieu of having the one wristband and the one like little buckler thing on the other arm. They decided they're not going that route, they're just going to keep the two wristbands. Which, that's not very surprising. I didn't think they'd make a whole new sculpt for that. But the one that I find a little weirder is he comes with a whole sword of power, just a one-piece version, instead of the half-piece that not only did the, Wave 1 Origins figure come with, but the actual vintage, original He-Man toy. So it does make for this really odd situation where just by buying this, you're not getting the most vintage version of a He-Man figure you could, because to achieve that in Origins, you'd also have to buy the Wave 1 figure to get his sword. Part of me wonders if that's maybe intentional. Mattel is a company. Companies do like money, so why, get fans to buy one He-Man toy when they can get them to buy two? Now, was that the intention here? Maybe. Or maybe they just decided they wanted to mix things up a little bit, give him an accessory that the Wave 1 figure didn't have just to set him apart more, which could also lead to certain people buying the toy again, right? People that already have the Wave 1, who may have skipped on this if it wasn't different enough, might buy in now? I don't know. Or it could just be that they've just completely phased out the mold for, the half sword. Because really, aside from your Wave 1 He-Man Skeletor and your Battle Armor He-Man Skeletor, no other figures in Origins have used that version, so maybe they just phased it out and they're just not going back to it no matter what. It's possible that's what's going on here. But aside from the discrepancies, I will say, at a quick glance, it does look like a vintage He-Man toy, especially if you pose it in just the right way. You get the kind of hands and legs at the right angle, where it looks like it doesn't really pose that much at all. Look at that. Yeah, it looks a lot like the old He-Man toy, doesn't it? So it does achieve it pretty well. Now here is our group shot with your Wave 1 He-Man figure and your Wave 3 Battle Armor He-Man. Now when comparing to the Wave 1 figure, you can see that aside from the head and the sword, everything about these toys is identical. Exact same colors used, no alterations to the mold, anything like that. The axe is all the same. And then we can see here that this toy simply is just using the head from the Battle Armor toy. So, this is probably one of the more cash-grabby figures out there, and it might feel a little dissatisfying to, drop $15 to $17 on this if you already have these two, because like I said, you can basically just make this guy already. Now, one thing that I do find very interesting is that if you do happen to have all three of these toys, you can actually rectify this guy and this guy being sold with the wrong swords. We already talked about how this He-Man comes with your single-piece Sword of Power instead of the split one like this He-Man. But the Battle Armor toy comes with a split sword, despite the fact that it actually should come with a sword like this, if you're going by the original. So that is a really interesting little conundrum you have, but if you did happen to, go all in on these and you bought all three versions, you can actually fix this right now. I'm going to show you. So the first thing you want to do is give our new vintage head He-Man the sword from our Wave 1 figure, because it's going to be the one that color matches him the best. The Battle Armor figure uses slightly different shades of colors. So you give that to him, and now he is super retro. Look at that. That's awesome. Then you give the single-piece sword to your Battle Armor He-Man. It may not exactly match, the shade of silver used for his axe and everything, but still the closest you can get. And then give the Battle Armor toys sword combo to this He-Man. Because this guy, he's not really going to look like the original no matter what, so he might as well get the off-color version of the sword. And there you go. Now, what you can do is, you're kind of using this guy as your sacrificial lamb here to give our standard He-Man toy and our Battle Armor He-Man toy the most vintage looks that they can actually achieve in the Origins line. So that's pretty cool, and it's something you could really only do properly if you have all three of these toys. So that is cool for completionists out there. It is kind of uncool and unfortunate for anybody that doesn't have the desire or the funds to do such a thing and have three different versions of nigh identical toys. But if you are one of those folks like me, you can feel a little bit of satisfaction in finally having, the right looking swords for these characters. And this completes our look at the new Origins Vintage Head Sculpt He-Man. Now this toy, I don't know if I can fully recommend it. It obviously surpasses the Wave 1 figure when it comes to vintage toy accuracy, with the sculpt, but it is compromised by the fact that he has the wrong sword. So normally I would say, oh hey, this can just completely replace the Wave 1 figure. You don't need to bother buying the Wave 1 figure, this is all you need. But if you really, truly want a vintage He-Man toy, this can only replace the Wave 1 toy if you already have it. Right? And you can swap the swords around, because otherwise he's a little bit lacking. Now, of course, this is all very kind of OCD when it comes to caring if he has the right sword or not. Some people may not care. I mean, if you're just more happy that he has the vintage head and you don't really care that he has like the little split sword thing with Skeletor, even better, honestly, because they'll be very satisfied with this. I know some people, I think the split swords are kind of a hassle, so they may really prefer this. And if you do, awesome. This will probably feel like the better buy. And if that's the case, go ahead and pick it up. If you already have the Wave 1 toy, then, it is kind of a tough sell to buy this again. But if you do, you get the option of swapping the swords out. So it's kind of a win-win. It just depends on whether or not you think he's worth the money. Of course, that is just my take on this new He-Man. Now I want to know what you all think. Do you see yourselves picking this up if you either don't or do have the Wave 1 figure? Do you think this is like a big cash grab, or you think it's kind of cool that they're releasing this? Any and all feedback is always welcome in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. And thank you for joining me for this look at the new Masters of the Universe Origins Wave 5 Vintage Head Sculpt He-Man. With all that said, I will see you next time.